Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. You have tuned into the Rebel News live stream. It is Wednesday, July 22nd. Wow, summer is flying by. And I know what you're saying. Where is Ezra Levent? Well, Ezra is busy out west with all kinds of things. So you have myself, David Menzies, and my lovely co-host also out west in the beautiful province of Alberta, Sheila, the she-devil, Gunn, Reid. Sheila, great to have you aboard. It's always the fastest hour when you and I are on the live stream. And first of all, you're going to tell the people what it is that we're endeavoring to do here. And I can hardly wait to hear about last night's China virus event in, was it Calgary or Edmonton?
Just outside of Edmonton, one of the suburbs of Edmonton.
Gotcha.
But yeah, we'll get to that in a second. But first, we're testing one of these shirts out today. Let me just move my microphone.
You know what? What? Here's the question, Sheila. Who answers the phone when you dial that number?
I don't know. We're going to find out, though. Yeah, we're testing one of these shirts. We had them actually for sale at the event last night just to see how they would go. And they were highly popular. So I snatched one off the table and I thought I'd let everybody know that the 1-800 I don't care shirts, at least for me. And if you see us in person, we have them. I'm not quite sure if they're up on the website yet, but I'm a fan. And great quality shirts. They're like a little bit thinner and you know, like I'm wearing a men's shirt, but it's flattering for ladies too. So that's great. But yeah, let's tell everybody what we're doing.
Well, maybe a little bit thinner works for you, but for, you know, a lug like me. And that's another thing. I was at a department store the other day, Sheila, and I have to say, 90% of the men's dress shirts are slim fit. And as far as I can tell, 90% of the population needs double or triple XL. What's going on here? Are they just slapping a slim fit tag on the shirts to make someone like me think I'm skinny mini instead of who I actually am?
Well, I'm actually surprised that you don't shop in one of those big galoot stores, like the Big and Tall, Jim's Big and Tall or whatever.
I'm not quite there yet.
No, but you're tall. You're tall. You're husky. Husky, I think, is the fit that you would need to wear. Anyways, let's tell everybody what we're doing because we have so much to talk about. And yesterday was very, very, very exciting for a bunch of different reasons. So this is normally Ezra hosts Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and David and I host Tuesday and Thursday, but the boss is on special assignment out here out west. He's doing things. He's tearing it up. So David and I are hosting Monday, Wednesday, Friday this week. And it's your opportunity to interact with your fellow rebels in the live chat on the side of the screen. But it also gives you a chance to support the work that we do here at Rebel News completely willingly. You don't have to, but we'd sure appreciate it because we don't get any of that Justin Trudeau bailout money. We wouldn't take it anyway. And we're not like the CBC. So we don't get $1.5 billion every single year to tell you yesterday's news today. And so you can do something called a super chat. You can at the bottom of the live chat, there's a little dollar sign. You can click on that and you can throw whatever you feel like in there and you get more characters based on the amount of money that you give. And it'll highlight your comment so everybody can see. And David and I will see it. It'll pin it to the top of the screen. We'll read it. If it's a comment, we'll read it. If it's a question, we'll do our best to address it. If it's something you'd like us to cover, now's your chance to put that on our radar. If we miss it, then Mr. Producer Justin, who works very hard to deal with all the on-air or off-air catastrophes that happen before we actually get on air, he'll send it to me in Teams, please. I think you already sent me one, which is great. And we'll read them on air. And it's your chance to support us and to interact with us, which is one of the things that I love about Rebel News. We're not like talking heads somewhere in a studio in Toronto or Ottawa. We're out there with the people. And when we're not with the people, we're still interacting with the people live on air. So we're approachable. We're normal people, unlike the rest of the mainstream media who seem to think they're part of Canada's elite class.
And Sheila, we have thick skin too, don't we? I mean, if you want to say something nasty, I got to tell you, yesterday for the first time I was hosting the live stream with Andrew, and one of the first super chats was from some cheeky monkey who said, This show is boring without Ezra. So we read it. So we are going to try very hard not to be boring here, though, aren't we, Sheila?
You know, we're not for everybody, but there's something for everybody.
Yes.
So if you don't like me, you can tune into Ezra. If you don't like Ezra, you can tune into Andrew or Kian. We've got all different types of personalities. You'll find one that you like, I promise. Oh, did you lose me?
Do we have one already, Sheila?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, no. We've definitely got a super chat already. I'm sorry. I thought normally you just butt in after I finish talking.
Well, I will butt in right now. When you finish the super chat, please give us a little Reader's Digest recap of what happened at that restaurant in the Edmonton area last night.
It was great. Okay, we've got Carrie Hollingsworth. She was very early to donate to the super chat. Carrie, thank you very much. $5 Canadian. Calgary has now mandated masks in public. Can you make an exempt card for us, please? I'm not sure I'm not sure what the exemptions are, but we'll definitely look into that. Yeah, I saw that yesterday that Calgary had mandated masks in all indoor spaces. I think right now Calgary has fewer than 600 active cases. So those are just positive tests when they call them active cases. That doesn't mean people who are sick, does not mean people who are in the hospital, doesn't even mean people who are exhibiting symptoms. Those are people who have a positive test. Fewer than 600 of them. 16, I think it is, people who are in the hospital with the coronavirus. 16. And one person in the ICU in a city of over 1 million people. That is how Calgary ended up with a mandatory mask law. Again, the conditions of the coronavirus and the number of cases do not necessitate the need to make Calgarians wear masks indoor. I don't understand it. 3 holdouts on city council stood for freedom, and that's it. And you'd like to think that Alberta is one of Canada's freest places, but once you drill down on those municipalities, boy, there's some power-hungry people on city council.
Oh, and we'll be talking about that later when we speak about the Fight the Fines Coburg case. But you know, Sheila, who I really feel for as well in this pandemic with all these mandatory mask rules, not that it applies to me, but what are people doing in the dating world? I mean, you can't tell what someone looks like. You meet them for the first time and you go, oh, what lovely eyes, and what lovely eyes. I mean, you don't, it's like buying a surprise package.
I was talking about that last night with some people, and they said, you know, we're interviewing people who come into our business who want jobs, and they have masks on, and they, you know, you want to wear a mask, great. If you don't, that's fine too. But they said, we don't know if we're hiring people who don't even have teeth. Like, they have no idea. Not that they wouldn't hire people who don't have teeth, but it's kind of nice to know so it's not shocking to find out one day down the road. We should keep going. What a strange world. We should keep going, though, because we'll get through these and then we'll talk about what happened last night. Brian Gibson gives us $10 Canadian, says, keep up the good fight. Love your team. We definitely will. There's lots of fights happening right now. All over the place. Most of them involve David right now. And we'll do our best to talk about those today. Shauna Vision gives us $5, says, will you be covering the Independent Press Gallery Conservative Leadership Debate on July 29th? Definitely. They are going to have so many rebels there, they're not even going to know what to do with all of us. It's going to be a real show of force that day.
Who's got bathroom duty in case Peter MacKay ducks in there again to avoid an interview?
I think it should be Ian, just because. Michigan 12 gives us $5 Canadian. Discuss 73-year-old Canadian killed by police for not wearing a mask. We actually wrote that up. He wasn't killed by police for not wearing a mask, though, just to be clear. However, the dispute that ended up having the police called on him was because he was trying to go into a grocery store, and the municipality had just, much like Calgary, just mandated mask laws, and he said, I'm not wearing a mask. He got into a dispute with the store workers in the store. There are some allegations that he may have shoved one of them. That's not worth dying over. They called the cops. The cops didn't engage him when they had his license plate. They followed him home, where they ended up in an altercation with him that ended up with him being shot by the police. And this is how, I mean, everything is so out of control right now that we have 73-year-old Canadians who, probably was a cantankerous guy. I expect that I'm probably going to be that way when I'm 73. I'm already that way. I'm 41. I can't imagine what I'm going to be like then. But is that worth having the police follow this man home and then engage in an altercation that ends up in his death? I mean, we're going to look back at the time of the coronavirus, and it's going to be the way we look back at satanic panic, I think, in the early 80s, where we're like, what the heck was wrong with society and this mass hysteria?
It's so weird, too, Sheila, because while, law-abiding citizens are coming under the thumb of government, at the same time, we're releasing violent offenders out of correctional facilities to maintain social distancing. The world's upside down. It's crazy.
It's crazy. We've got a super chat from Michael Brace. Michael, thank you very much. This is very generous. David Demenzoid Menzies. Every time I watch you, there's always controversy. I love it. Keep it up. I want to be a bodyguard for your crew really bad sometimes. Hi, Sheila. You're very informative. Always tuning into your show. Love you guys. Thank you very much. David goes where others fear to tread, and is very brave, and also a happy warrior under a lot of abuse. And I don't think a lot of our, I guess the right word is peers in the rest of the media, I don't think they could conduct themselves in the way that David does.
Well, Sheila, I don't think I'm brave. I think I'm just naive. I mean, I walk into a protest and I can't believe people would dare want to punch someone so lovable. And it's always a great surprise to me. But I want to thank the gentleman for that offer. Sheila, we should point out, we have had, no exaggeration, probably a few hundred offers of Rebel viewers saying, please let us know the next time you're in the public square. But, our boss, I think rightly, has been very clear about this. We, for liability reasons alone, we need to hire trained, professional, licensed, insured bodyguards, because otherwise you're just begging for some kind of a lawsuit. And we don't want that to happen to our viewers, too, for them to be personally sued. So I want to thank everybody. I mean, certainly the intention is there and it's heartfelt, and it's very humbling that you would offer to come and put your body on the line to ward off blows. But that's the reason why we've got to go through a professional service, Sheila.
Right. And if people feel compelled to help protect us, I appreciate that. But the best way to do that is to go to journalistdefensefund.com and donate to cover our security costs so that we can hire these trained professionals. A lot of them are ex-cops, ex-military. I know when I was in BC covering Jonathan Yaniv, we had ex-military from Eastern Europe that were working to keep me safe, and they did a fantastic job. They never got in my way, but they did keep me safe, and that's exactly the people that we need. But if people, I know you really don't want us to get hurt, and I know that Ezra doesn't want to have to call my husband and say, I'm sorry, tell the kids that your wife got punched at work. He doesn't want to have to do that, and so that's why he does spend a lot of money. I think $15,000 was one of our latest security bills to keep us safe. And if people do want to keep us safe, just please, journalistdefensefund.com is the best way to do it.
Yeah, and that $15,000, more than $15,000 actually, Sheila, just in the last 2 months alone, and we're not even out of July yet. And, I just cut a promo for this. It's amazing, Sheila. Back in the early 80s, when I went to the Ryerson School of Journalism, there was never a component about how to protect yourself in the public square from violence while practicing journalism. And the reason for that, Sheila, is that it was so incredibly rare. It was like unheard of. But we have a new generation now, Sheila, and I think it's because of the Marxism that has come into the schools and the post-secondary schools. And it's basically a premise that if somebody disagrees with your politically correct narrative, they are therefore a Nazi. And the way you deal with Nazis is you punch them. You don't debate them.
Yep.
And it is so outrageous and egregious that, in a society that should be embracing free speech, that, first of all, it's absolutely outrageous somebody would compare use the word Nazism for having a differing opinion, but that's how they're taught. And this is what's happening. And it happens especially to media outlets that are right of center, because I suspect, Sheila, the left of center media outlets, and there's some proof to back this up, you can't tell me that there aren't people at the CBC that silently support what Antifa is doing. They see them as freedom fighters and whatnot. So you're never going to see them harassed by these left-wing thugs.
No, and I wouldn't say it's silent support. I think it's pretty overt. Let's keep tearing through these. James Smith gives us $5. Heard a rumor Trudeau sole sourced the Chinese PPE purchase. 2 empty planes came back through a French logistics company. Investigate. I'll look into that. Kane Enmark gives us $5 Canadian. Drea's interview with the guy with the heart issue hit me hard, as I had this problem too. I had the surgery in November. Thank goodness you had it then and not during the pandemic. This story gave me feelings. Good work. Well, Kane, I'm glad that you did get the surgery and that you're feeling much better. So many people, we talk about this on the show all the time. I have one of my closest friends' daughter is a operating theater nurse. And she was basically laid off during the height of the pandemic because surgeries were canceled. And Drea's interview with the ex-wife of a man who died, leaving behind 2 little girls, that's the human side of these canceled surgeries. She's not alone. There are a lot of people that this has happened to. There are a lot of cancer treatments that have been delayed, thus, lowering the chances of survival for people with what would have been a survivable cancer. That's the other side of the pandemic hysteria. They're sacrificing these lives to, I guess, their argument is to save lives on the other side, and that wave of coronavirus cases just never came.
This is the biggest scandal of this pandemic, Sheila, and this is no conspiracy theory. I have personally interviewed a nurse and a doctor here in Ontario. We had to disguise them because this would be a career-limiting move for them if their identities were known. And it's simply the idea that the hospitals right now are war zones, that they can't keep up with the cases flooding in. Nothing could be further from the truth. They're more than half empty, and medical staff are being sent home early. And in the case of the doctor, he told me about one, I think it was a 14-hour shift in which he experienced something that he never experienced in his almost 30 years of practicing medicine, which was he did not have a single case to attend to. And meanwhile, people on elective surgery are dying. And that is a scandal.
It is. We've got to get through these because we're almost 20 minutes in and we haven't talked about the big thing that happened yesterday. So, geez. MEC gives us $1.80 Canadian. I don't see a super chat. Thank you very much. We do appreciate it. Every little bit helps. Roxanne LaFrance gives us $5 Canadian. Are you guys planning on having an exemption card for Canada? We do have the exemption card for Ontario. We'd have to have our lawyers look into how to do that for Alberta as these municipalities are rolling out the mask laws, because our Premier Jason Kenney in Alberta here said he's not going to mandate masks. He's going to make masks available everywhere. And if you want to wear them, great. If you don't, that's fine too. But the municipalities are going around him, these control freak liberal municipalities. Roxanne goes on to say, here it's not mandatory, but some stores and BC ferries will make you. Yeah. Chris Marchese gives us $2 Canadian. This mask law is complete BS. Trudeau is moronic. You're not going to get an argument from me about that. Adam Clark, $6.99. I think I have a little bit of a crush on Sheila. I love her books and love her work too. Thank you very much. I'm not for everybody, but I am for some people. Abu Baker Al Patati gives us $10 Canadian. Good morning, Gunny and Menzoid. Are there secret supporters of rebel media in government media party? Military and police? Also, yes. Do they reach out to you? Also, yes. What do they say? We get a lot of supporters that are normal people who are within the machinery of government, be they the odd, outspoken conservative in the bureaucracy. We do have a lot of police and military supporters, but they can't speak out because their bosses would get upset. But mostly they just tell us to keep fighting. And they also complain about the bureaucracies in which they work. That's a common theme too.
And Sheila, I've got a perfect example from last week. We had a few people on our tip line who are members, or are members, I should say, of the Public Service Alliance of Canada, tipping us off that there are seminars going on right now, anti-racism seminars for the white members of this public sector union. And they're being taught by none other than Nora Loretto, who is, of course, the odious woman who tweeted 2 years ago when the Humboldt Broncos bus tragedy occurred, how there wouldn't be this outpouring of grief and money by Canadians if these weren't white, male, young people. So basically you have an ageist, sexist, racist giving racism anti-racism seminars to white people on the public dime. And even, like I said, the membership of this union was infuriated by that. So it's great when you have people reach out and let us know who's who in the zoo, as the saying goes.
Right. And for those folks who do reach out to us from within the bureaucracy of government, we do our best to protect their identity. We'll take their information, we'll fact check it, run with it. A lot of times it's just forwarded emails from their union. But we do protect their anonymity because we know there will be serious reprisals for them for being the lone conservative in their department. Now, let's talk about, I know there's still more super chats because everybody's very generous, but let's talk about what happened last night.
Yes,
so
I can't wait.
Last night, just across the highway, there's a big highway that divides and the refineries. So it's called Refinery Row, and it divides the two communities of Edmonton and Sherwood Park. Sherwood Park is like the suburb, but people in Sherwood Park generally don't work in Edmonton. They kind of work at the refineries and in and around. It's its own community. And we had a restaurant there. And the restaurant, actually, we initially tried to help them reopen, but we just couldn't move fast enough. It's a massive buffet restaurant, and they were sort of left out of the reopen plan for Alberta because the government didn't really know what to do with them. So being good Albertans, they actually came to the government with their own plan and said, this is what we want to do. And we want to help all the other buffet restaurants, our own competitors, also reopen too. So these are good, hardworking people, problem solvers, nice family. We thought, okay, great. These are our kind of people. We booked with them to host our book launch. We told them the mob is going to come for you. And they said, we're mob resilient and we feed everybody. We don't care what your politics are. We just want to feed you if you want to have a good meal. And they had the space for us, and we knew that they would follow the rules and not get in trouble with the coronavirus regulations for restaurants because they helped write them. And they were happy to host us. But in the days leading up to the event, they started getting pressure. And largely, it all came from Calgary phone numbers, so not from the area. They had Asian accents. And they were saying that they needed to cancel this book event because Ezra Levant is racist towards Chinese people, which is crazy because Ezra will say some of my favorite people are Chinese freedom fighters. We're strong supporters of Hong Kong. We're strong supporters of Taiwan. We're supporters of persecuted religious and ethnic minorities inside of China, like the Falun Gong and the Uyghurs. And the Christians, by the way, and anybody in China who wants to be free of the CCP. I mean, our body of work speaks for itself. And anybody who would say that about Ezra Levant did not read that book, which, as it turns out, was true.
And Sheila, if I may interject too, with regards to the Chinese Canadian community, one of my most joyous assignments ever was on the lawns of Queen's Park on a cold winter day when something like 600 predominantly Chinese Canadians assembled to protest the hijab hoax. By the way, a protest all the media ignored because that doesn't fit their narrative. And if Mr. Producer can dig this up for later, because if I hadn't heard it with my own ears, I wouldn't have believed it. When they started chanting, Rebel media, real news, CBC, fake news, I think those were the words, but it's all on tape. Wow. And like I said, that was a predominantly Chinese Canadian protest. So the idea that we're racist or anti-Chinese is hogwash.
And so going back to the pressure that was being put on this restaurant to cancel us, they were very smart. They recorded some of the phone calls that came in and they said, we're never going to eat at your establishment again. And he knew this is a Calgary phone number. It's probably not one of my regular customers out here in Sherwood Park. But he said, okay, well, I'm sorry to hear that. What was your favorite item on the menu when you were here last time? Silence, just dead silence. So, I mean, he knew that this is baloney. Just a great guy, really, just a really good family. Perfect Albertans, right? And then somebody called and offered them $3,000, a bribe to cancel the event. And so, if you are a struggling business, it hasn't been open really in 4 months. That's pretty enticing that you could just take money, don't have to call in any staff that day, just close the restaurant and pocket $3,000. Pretty enticing, but they said no. They said, no, we're not closing our business. We're not taking a bribe to close our business. And also, we introduced like 140 people to them and who are really excited because look at this restaurant that stood up to the CCP. We like them. But more, let me continue. So the bribe came in, the crazy phone numbers all from Calgary area code came in, and then a threat letter came to them, and it was written almost like, okay, I bought a lighting kit here a little while ago for the studio, and I bought it off Amazon. It was clearly made in China, and this was kind of before the pandemic when I was less concerned about buying stuff from China. And the instructions were written like this letter where it was like you knew what they were trying to say, but you're like, this is not how I would say it. This went through a translation app. That they got a threat letter like that saying that Ezra's racist and you have to cancel this event or there will be reprisals for your restaurant, including a protest out front. And we've already called the local police on you for hosting this event. And we've already called Alberta Health Services to complain about your restaurant. That's what they did to this restaurant. And yet, still, the restaurant never buckled. They never buckled.
This is incredible on two levels. First of all, Sheila, we're used to the intimidation and thuggery and, in one case, even a bomb threat. Remember that for one of our Rebel Live events. But in addition to the stick, these people were also using the carrot. Hey, $3,000 cash in a paper bag. Just cancel this event. That's staggering. Secondly, talk about the Barbara Streisand effect in terms of the law of unintended consequences. All these dummies have done is created even more publicity for this book. You can't buy this kind of publicity. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised that some conspiracy theorist out there is saying, oh, the rebels behind these protesters making these threats and payouts. And we're not, folks. We don't have to do it. So this is win-win-win for us, Sheila.
It absolutely is. But, we thought, okay, these phone calls are coming out of Calgary. There's probably not going to be a protest there, but there might be. And we were prepared. We had security. Again, if you want to help cover the security, journalistdefensefund.com. But we thought, okay, it's Sherwood Park. It's a bedroom community, nice people, huge rebel base there, very conservative area of Alberta. It's conservative provincially, conservative municipally, conservative federally. It's a safe place if you're a conservative. However, shortly after the event began, after our restaurant and again, I want to stress, these are normal people. They're not used to being in the pressure cooker like this. So I'm very proud that they didn't buckle. Shortly after the event started, about 6 or 8 people showed up, all about the same age, all wearing masks, holding these cardboard signs, and one sign that they threw on the ground, saying that the book title was racist, that Ezra Levant is fueling hatred, racism is the real virus, on and on and on. And they were blocking the attendees from coming into the event. And, if you're concerned about social distancing and virus, whatever. They were screaming about, at one point, one man was telling me that Canada was complicit in a genocide of Indigenous people. And I don't know how he even got on that topic, but Uyghurs, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to listen to some CCP spokesperson scream that Canada's genocidal as they're shaving the heads of Uyghurs and shipping them off to concentration camps. I'm sorry. I'm not going to listen to it. Another point. These people rolled up in very expensive cars, very, very expensive cars, Mercedes, Beamers. And Kian and I noticed at one point that they were recording us with Huawei phones, which was a nice touch.
Beautiful.
Kian and I were asking them, and I think Kian did a really great job on this. He was asking them, do you think, let's have a discussion. Do you think Hong Kong is part of China? Wouldn't answer. Do you think Taiwan is part of China? Oh, definitely. Like they couldn't even control themselves there when they said, is Taiwan part of China? Definitely. They didn't want to answer about Hong Kong because it's pretty contentious right now. But for them, Taiwan's not contentious. It's definitely part of China. When I asked them about the Uyghurs, they didn't want to talk about it. No, this isn't about that, they kept saying. This isn't about that. It's funny to hear them say that Ezra Levant is anti-Muslim while they're re-educating Muslim kids in residential schools.
Kidding me.
I promise you. I mean, some of the footage is so crazy, and they're screaming in Ezra's face, pointing their finger in his face, saying "F you, F you," and Ezra just looks at him and says, "Commie."
Well, of course, because Ezra couldn't be happier. I would like to extend my sincere thank you to those stooges that came out to this protest, because you are going to make this book a #1 bestseller because of your actions. So thank you, thank you, thank you. All your malicious gossip and libelous words and slander and defamation, it's like water off a duck's back to us, and you're going to move the merchandise. Couldn't be happier.
Well, yeah, and I mean, they're protesting in front of a restaurant that is, by and large, a Chinese restaurant. The owner isn't Chinese himself, but he employs 40 Chinese people across 4 restaurants. He's not anti-Chinese either. He wouldn't be hosting an anti-Chinese event. And when you asked these protesters, what are you doing here? The book is racist. Did you read the book? Look at the title. I said, did you read the book? They would just scream over me when I asked them if they read the book. Did you read the book? I went down and I'm like, did you read the book? Did you read the book? Everybody would just start yelling at me. Finally, I'm yelling. I'm like, did anybody read the book? And they would just yell that the China virus title was racist, but they wouldn't read the tagline about Justin Trudeau. And Ezra's trying to explain to them, the virus is the CCP. The virus is the Communist Party of China. And they wouldn't the conversation wouldn't move that far because they didn't know really why they were there. I don't think they knew why they were there. They were deployed there. And half of them, I felt, were true believers in the CCP and communism and were happy to be here in Canada advocating for Chinese dictatorship. And I felt like the other half, and probably the more vocal of the crowd, were probably worried about their families back home. So they had to put on this theater in defense of the Chinese state, because God only knows what kind of torture they stood to inflict on their family members back home. So I tried to be a little more compassionate for these advocates for communism than I normally would be, because I know what they do to the families back home. And I've heard that from the Uyghur community who, after what I saw yesterday, I was reminded of the Uyghur community who stood on the steps of the Vancouver courthouse.
That's right.
And stared down those Huawei executives, which is the surveillance, the high-tech surveillance arm of the CCP state. They use their technology to find the Uyghurs and lock them up. And they stared down those Huawei executives, they stared down those consulate officials, and they stood up for 2 Canadians imprisoned in China. Where were the rest of us? Where's the rest of the Canadian community? Why are the Uyghurs doing the work that we should be doing? But I remembered their bravery, because their families are back home and their families are actively targeted. And yet they were standing for 2 Canadians and their freedom. And so that's why I tried to be a little bit less angry with some of those people as I normally would have been yesterday, because I don't know the backstory about why they were there. And I felt like the ones who are loudest and being the most performative, probably they're the ones that are most scared.
No, it's a very good point you make, Sheila. And on the other side of the equation, I'm just wondering, what is the going rate these days when it comes to hire a political stooge to stand in front of a restaurant with a cardboard sign from Staples screaming? I mean, like, I'm always fascinated when it comes to following the dollar sign. What do you think they were getting for that? Because they didn't come out of there, unless they were threatened, as you said. There's no reason in the world they would spend any amount of time acting like they did unless there was something in it for them.
Well, they didn't spend it on sign-making materials, I'll tell you that much, because it wasn't even cardboard signs from Staples. These were like ripped-up cardboard boxes that they were using. But they were driving some pretty fancy cars. So I think maybe they're skimming the protest funds and putting it into lifestyle funds. That's what I think.
Wow.
I can't imagine that... I don't know. I mean, God only knows what these people are being paid or being forced to do. But this is Canada, and the fact that the tentacles of the CCP can reach far enough into this country that they can prompt a protest in front of a very pro-Chinese person restaurant to protest a book about communism in not small town Alberta, but suburbia Alberta. We've got a real problem, and things are a lot worse and a lot deeper than we know.
Well, like you said, Sheila, this is Canada, and we have a Prime Minister of Canada who has a admiration for the basic dictatorship of China. Wow, are those hens ever coming home to roost? Sheila, I understand we have some super chats we have to get caught up on.
Yes, definitely. We've got a super chat from Sneaky Beaver. It gives us $10 Canadian. Hello, I think Trudeau and his crews are going to try to cancel the leaders of the Bloc Québécois. Someone tried to cancel him. I admire him. He didn't bow to the mob. He gets my vote straight up. However, the Bloc Québécois aligned with the Liberals yesterday, I think it was yesterday, to block disclosure of some WE documents. So, you know, maybe that's the blackmail involved. I'm not sure.
Or it's a matter, maybe, Sheila, they don't want an election. They made out like bandits in the last election. Yeah. The NDP doesn't want an election. They're broke. They have no money and perhaps no hope either. So these are dynamics also playing in, I think, to some of the government support for these initiatives.
Yeah, I think Jagmeet Singh is still working for free as the leader of the party. I mean, he's got his MP seat, so he does have that salary, but usually the leader of the party gets a top up and he's working for free. So that's a taste of socialism for you right there.
Well, if he's working for free, I would suggest they're still overpaying him. Anyways, keep going.
Yeah, definitely. You get what you pay for, don't you? Frank Daniel gives us $5 Canadian. We heard from CTV that someone was printing up phony mask cards. How are your cards different? Ours are lawyered. We've actually read the exemption. We've lawyered everything. We've put everything through a lawyer. How are they phony? How are they not real? If you've got a printed card that says you have an exemption and the government's not allowed to question your exemption, it seems pretty real to me, I'd say. Annalisa S. gives us $20.99, looking pretty hot today, Menzies. You are very color coordinated. Yeah, his tie reminds me of Bumblebee from the Transformers. Love you bunches, Sheila. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much, I think.
Dan X gives us $2 Canadian. Thoughts on Belinda Karahalios being booted out of the PC caucus? This is a David question, I think, because he's got his finger on the pulse of PC politics in Ontario. But she stood up for her constituents, and at great personal cost, and I think that's kind of what you want in a politician.
Well, as a matter of fact, I should let Belinda, in her own words, state what she has to say about taking that courageous stand. This is against Bill 195, I believe, which is really something that's eclipsing our charter rights. It is something that no conservative government should be introducing, as far as I can tell. And this courageous woman, and you know, last night, Sheila, she got thrown out of caucus, you know, for taking a principled stand, stood up for what's right. We have calls out to her to arrange an interview, hopefully by sometime this afternoon. And I'd love to hear what Belinda has to say. I know in a few minutes, Doug Ford will be having his 1 p.m. Eastern press conference. I am sure, unfortunately and sadly, that he will use the opportunity to throw Belinda under the bus. And it just, the disappointment with Doug Ford, I got to be honest. And you know what? It began even before he got elected with throwing Tanya Granick-Allen under the bus, the kingmaker. Without her support, her votes, this is not Doug Ford as premier in this province anymore. That would not have happened. And, you know, again, Sheila, it's the double standard. They dig up some old tweets from the past, and instead of saying, well, that was then, this is not, now we're moving on. So thank you very much for your loyalty, but what have you done for me lately? You're fired. Whereas Goldie Gameri, the PC candidate out in Ottawa, she can say things like, Jesus is worm food, Christianity is gay. By the way, what does she mean by that, Christianity? And nothing to see here, folks. She said what? Oh, we didn't hear about it. Well, she not only said it, she wrote it in social media. Again, the appalling double standard. So that's the way this government rolls. It's basically for those in the backbenches, what have you done for me lately? And if you don't fall in step, you're fired. And that's a shame.
Yeah. And I mean, and really, she stood up to the government, her own government, to rein in their powers. She voted against a law, a change that would have allowed the government to hang on to control of everything with the coronavirus for another 2 years.
2 years.
Another 2 years. And she said, that's crazy. That's unnecessary. Basically, if we need this power, we have to go back to the people and ask for it constantly and have them allow us to have it. But that's not what this law said, and that's why she said, no, I'm not voting for it, and thank God she didn't.
And
Good
Sheila,
for her.
this is, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't this what Justin Trudeau tried to do going back several months?
Yeah.
You know, but that's Justin Trudeau. Those are Justin Trudeau federal Liberals. This is a progressive conservative government under Doug Ford, Ontario open for business, respect for taxpayers. Are you kidding me? What's happened?
Yeah, there's a little too much P and not enough C in the PCs and in Ontario. And you know what? They're going to have a problem because what that does is it fractures the party, and you're going to end up with a Wild Rose PC situation here, and you're going to end up with the Liberals back in power pretty darn quick as things fall apart.
Did these guys forget why they had the palace coup and got rid of crybaby Patrick Brown? Because this is the kind of crap he would enact. Not Doug Ford, not what I would think Doug Ford would do, but he did it.
Let's keep going because we want to get to your video from the beach in Coburg, but from that lovely lady who I think is a kindred spirit with me. I love everything about her.
You know, and what a delight to say to somebody, what's your issue, and not get the raised middle finger or the F-bomb or a bottle thrown at your head. I mean, what a concept.
She did all of her research before she went for a walk
She
on that
sure
beach.
did.
And she knew. She's great. Very prepared. I love that. True rebel.
Yeah.
Michael LaFave gives us $10. I like your idea about the mask exemption, but people are stubborn and will not listen. They will not serve you, period. They will make a scene. That could be the case, but why not try? And you can get your card at maskexemption.ca. And that's been lawyered for efficacy in Ontario, but not Alberta yet, just so you know. But why not get one if you're in Alberta? They're kind of fun. They'll be a collector's item. Kane Enmark, $5. Sorry.
Just a quick correction, sorry, from Mr. Producer. I think it is actually Toronto specific.
Toronto, yes, Toronto specific.
And that's because municipalities, they want to get in. They want to get their share of this totalitarianism too, right? So it actually differs from municipality to municipality. So this one is Toronto-centric.
Right. And yeah, I mean, I guess we'd have to create one for just about every different municipality that does these mask laws. But still, they're kind of fun to have. It'll kind of be a fun keepsake for the time of the corona when your grandkids gather around and they want to hear, what was the corona like? You can show them your mask exemption card. And you can, like I said, you can get one at maskexemption.ca. And there you can actually pitch in to cover the cost for us to lawyer these things, because we did have to put a lot of work into it before we announced it, because we wanted to make sure that we were on firm legal footing.
Indeed.
Kane Enmark gives us $5. David is killing it with his videos. David is now my favorite reporter, but Drea is on your heels. Sheila, you're my number 2. Thank you very much, Kane. Viking Insane gives us $2 Canadian. Justin's dad would be proud. His uncle Raul is. Chris Marchese gives us $5. How does the face mask exemption card work? If I printed one off, is this legit? Well, businesses actually listen to me. Keep up the great work, guys. Just please go to maskexemption.ca. We've laid it all out there. You can see our legal arguments and why we're doing it, why we're doing things the way that we are. And you can print your card off there. And like I said, donate to cover the cost to legal the daylight side of those things. Isabella M, $5. Keep it up. We will. D Schultz gives us $5. Hey, guys. AMC Pacer. Yes, definitely. Yeah, love that car. Love it.
You know, it's funny, Sheila. I think that goes back to a discussion we had before. The muscle cars, you know, so we're talking about from the mid-'60s to the early '70s before EPA and insurance went crazy. They are so coveted on the auction circuit. They're getting 6 figures, sometimes 7, depending on the condition. So there is a sub-market now of so-called nerd cars, and the AMC Pacer would be one. First of all, most of them have rusted away, so they're quite rare. Yeah. And secondly, there's kind of like an in-joke in driving it. So those things are actually appreciating. They're kind of quasi-classic, I would call them. And, you know, I think it's a good investment play if you want something unusual and not quite classic, but sort of classic in terms of, you know, an affordable play for a car from yesteryear. So, yeah, AMC Pacer. And AMC made all kinds of wacky cars. They were ahead of the game with the Eagle, the prototype for so many of today's SUVs and crossovers. And I got to tell you, AMC also made a muscle car, and this is why you have to love AMC, Sheila. It was called the AMC Rebel. Look it up. Nice.
David, that's how I would describe you, as quasi-classic. Observer Dude gives us £5 and says, is it true? This is a David question. Is it true that David accidentally pushed an Antifa woman over at the Tent City protest? Give me a break.
Please, my friend, watch the video. I was nowhere near her when that happened. This is the black lady, I believe, who we met days later, who showed us her key card for the Sheraton Hotel, where rates start at $277 a night. Yeah, you don't expect the ringleaders to stay in those sweaty tents. No. They're living it up in luxury. They're really using the GoFundMe money, which at the time I looked into it, Sheila, was over $49,000. Don't know where it is now. And when you look at her, she is lying prone and she is screaming and screaming.
Oh, yeah.
There's not even a bruise on her. And I even said to her the last time I met her, I said, you know what? You've really put the fear of God of Meryl Streep into her, because that performance was Best Actress or Best Supporting Actress, your fakery of being hurt, right? Meanwhile, as she's screaming away, that thug walks up to our dear friend and ace cameraman, Efren, and lays a haymaker on him. And like I said, the camera doesn't lie, folks. Check it out yourself.
Yeah, she's rolling on the ground there like a French soccer player, putting on quite a performance. And Efron is bobbing and weaving because this guy's trying to punch his lights out. And everybody's like, David, push the lady. No, sorry. Okay, let's keep going. Pamela Kingwell gives us $3. Fist pump. Thank you very much. Mike Seguin, $20.99. Happy belated birthday, Sheila. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Hillary Waugh gives us $3. Says, what's the rest of the story from last night? Well, to continue my story, because I think maybe I left it a little open-ended, the rest of the story is that everybody had a great time. A lot of people had a lot of really great food. Ezra had a couple of dinners, not just one. And, it's just a bunch of like-minded people enjoying, freedom of speech, the freedom to write a book in a restaurant that supports freedom of speech and the freedom to write a book, eating great food, having great conversations, while a bunch of commies cried outside for an hour until they went home. And, that's the moral of the story, is that freedom won the day and the commies lost.
And since they were commies from Calgary, was Anne McGrath there, Sheila, by any chance?
Oh, these commies, though, they told us that they came from Edmonton and they only heard about this the day before. So their friends from Calgary organized the pro-CCP people up in Edmonton, or so they told us. Who only knows? And it came together quite quickly with their broken down cardboard box signs.
I would be surprised if Anne had some role in this.
Oh, the old sickle and hammer Anne. Anyways, Hillary, we'll have some video up of what happened last night, I think, in the coming days.
Can't wait.
So you can see just how ridiculous outside was versus how nice and pleasant and wonderful the inside was. And that restaurant, if you care to support them or send them some kind words, or if you were at last night's event, please leave them an honest review. It's Buffet Royale in Sherwood Park. Great family, great food. And they stared down the CCP, turned down a bribe, stood up to a protest, and didn't buckle. I mean, they're normal people. What normal people would do that? So good for them.
Fantastic.
I think we're all caught up on Super Chat.
Fantastic. Well, before we run out of time, we alluded to it earlier, Sheila, the Tamara case in Cobourg. Apparently, it is a health hazard to walk on a deserted beach. And without further ado, check out the video, folks.
And when you say arrested, do you mean you were actually cuffed and put in a police cruiser?
Correct. I was handcuffed.
For walking on a beach?
I was handcuffed. My belongings were taken, and I was held in a jail cell for about an hour and a half until I could speak with duty counsel.
David Menzies for Rebel News here in Cobourg, Ontario. And folks, I am with Tamara Ugolini. And wow, this might be one of the most incredible fight the fines case that Rebel News has taken on. You are not going to believe what happened to Tamara and one of her friends. I believe exactly 2 weeks from this Saturday, Tamara, you were down here near the beachfront of Cobourg. It's a beautiful beach. And what happened?
A friend and I decided, a hot day like today, we were very overheated. So we decided to take a leisurely stroll through our beautiful Great Lake shoreline. We entered the pier, as some exhibitors did today, and about halfway through became harassed, per se, by a bylaw officer.
Now, There's a huge sign here. There's other signs. Beach closed, entry prohibited. Nobody on the beach unless you take a census of the seagulls, of course. So did you know that maybe you were in contravention of a bylaw by walking here?
So there actually isn't any bylaw in effect here in the town of Cobourg. My understanding was that I was exercising my freedom of mobility to stroll the shoreline.
Indeed, you sent along to me via email some land surveys, and I believe the border of the town, if I've got this right, it's where the lifeguard stations are, these huts along the beach. And basically when you go further than that and into the water, that is no longer town of Cobourg land. So was that the basis on which you thought you were home free by doing this?
Correct. Yeah, there seems to be a lot of gray area in terms of who or if anyone actually owns these shorelines. So it'll be interesting to see moving forward. Maybe there can be some more definitions, black and white, happening there.
Now, back to your story. The bylaw officer approaches you and your friend, and what is the nature of the discussion?
Right, so he asks us to come toward him and discuss what we were doing. So we happily obliged. We were cooperative, peaceful. My friend and I, Joyce, she was here earlier. She's a 60-year-old woman, so you can imagine the two of us are quite the threatening pair. And at that point, there was some backup called.
He was calling for backup for the two of you.
Because there's no bylaw, so a bylaw officer has no real authority here. So he called for some backup, I guess, because we were acting so unlawfully, strolling a shoreline, and we were very threatening. Which is sarcasm, for the record. And so, the officer and I went back and forth a little bit, and she called.
And please tell me the nature of the back and forth discussion, Tamara. Was the officer saying, I'm going to write you up for one of those $880 tickets? Was she asking for identification? How did it pan out?
Right. So they basically wanted to, hit us with a fine, to which I refused to receive because I was well within my rights. And my friend did receive the fine, but however, because I refused, the officers and I went back and forth for a few minutes, and eventually I was arrested despite not receiving any feedback as to whether or not I was actually facing an arrestable offense.
And when you
so well versed that lady was, Sheila, and I want to increase the insanity level of what she endured by getting that ticket. On that very day we were there in Cobourg, they had shut down several downtown streets to have an open street festival with merchants selling things and restaurants, plying their trade.
Yeah.
So think about this, Sheila. You can congregate in the hundreds on concrete and asphalt, but not on sand. Furthermore, just a few meters away from where that interview took place, there was a trailer park, bumper-to-bumper RVs from all around Ontario and Quebec. Again, congregating in the great outdoors in Cobourg by the hundreds. Nothing to see here. And the final thing, Sheila, the western beach of the town of Cobourg was not fenced off. There were people on the beach and swimming, and a local came up to me and he gave me this information. He said, Dave, I guarantee you everybody in that water right now is from out of town, because the locals know you don't go to that beach. It is uncirculated water. In the months leading up to it, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of Canada geese that go there. They do their business. So that is essentially an open toilet bowl. So why isn't the health authorities concerned about swimming in water that might potentially have E. coli? I'm way more terrified of that than potentially getting Wuhan virus on the beautiful eastern beach. I can hardly wait to see this case play out in a court of law, Sheila.
Yeah, that cute as a button little freedom fighter there was stuck in handcuffs and slapped in a jail cell for almost 2 hours for walking on an empty beach.
Which she's allowed to because she accessed it from the pier. She didn't scale the fence. It is crazy town. Anyways,
we're going to fight this every step of the way. We've hired Sam Goldstein, best in the biz, to help her out to fight this fine. And if people want to help us fight the fine, because Tamara put herself in harm's way because she wants to liberate the beach for everybody else in Cobourg. And so she ends up in a jail cell and she gets the fine. But what's important here is that the fine needs to be struck down so that nobody else in Cobourg can get one either. And so that's why we're fighting it so ferociously. And we've got Sam Goldstein working for Tamara. And if people want to help, pitch in, because it's going to cost way more money than the fine to fight the fine. But it's the point of it all. It's about the exercise of fighting for freedom to liberate the beach. They can do that at fightthefines.com.
Indeed, if you can make a contribution, folks, because it's not just Tamara, it's for the whole town of Cobourg and for tourists. This council has closed the beach till August 31st with the kind of hot, humid summer we're having. I mean, I think back, when I used to go to Toronto's eastern beaches off Queen Street in the summer. I used to spend so many days on the beach. In fact, I remember my grandfather calling me the son of the beach, or something like that. But anyways, we got some super chats, I believe, Sheila.
We do have some super chats. But again, I just want to stress, it's going to cost way more money than Tamara's fine to fight the fine. But we want Cobourg beaches to be free for residents of Cobourg, for residents of Ontario, for anybody who wants to use the beach. Yep. So please go to fightthefines.com where you can donate to help Tamara and any of our other freedom fighters out there.
Beautiful.
Yes. Okay, so we've got a super chat from Timothy Ierson. I don't see a question or comment there, but you did give us $5. That's very generous. Derek G gives us $5 and says, is a degree in journalism necessary and or worth it to become a journalist? Any recommendations for a reputable university for a journalism degree? I don't have a journalism degree. I did not waste my money on that. I cannot recommend trade school enough, though, if you want a real job. David, you went to university to become a journalist. Did it help you or no?
You know what? Looking back, Sheila, maybe it's worthwhile to go for the first year and learn things about, the important things like, defamation and, laws and maybe get your feet wet. But there's nothing like experience, and you will learn more on the job in 3 months in a journalism job than you would in 3 years of journalism school. In a way, I can't even believe there are journalism schools still operating, Sheila, given the state of the media right now. And so I would not invest in a full course. Like I said, get your feet wet, learn the basics, take the first year or the first half year of a course, and then go out in the field and hone your craft. And I would suggest, Sheila, most of our rebels, they never had a journalism degree, right?
No, I think the most important thing to become a journalist is intellectual curiosity, perseverance, and hard work. That's really what it is. And you're going to investigate lots of things where nothing becomes of it. But it's perseverance. It's not getting discouraged when that happens. It's following the next tip. That's really what it is. And I would suggest that the state of journalism today is probably directly related to journalism school. Like, I think you can draw a straight line. That's what I think.
Yeah, you may as well just take a course in public relations. Sheila, we have more super chats.
We really do, and we're way past time, and Justin's probably hungry. Frank Jr. Romano gives us €5 and said, how's it going? How isn't it going? I guess is the better question, because we've always got a lot going on around here. Mike G gives us $5. Says, I just bought the China virus and Librano's book 4 hours after shipping. Amazon banned the China virus. So glad I got it when I did. Thanks, Rebel Team. It sounds like they've unbanned it now for a time, so people could still get that at chinavirusbook.com and get it now, because the rebanning, I'm sure it's coming very, very soon, especially after what I saw last night, because I'm sure the Chinese consulate is now going to put pressure on Amazon to get rid of that book.
Buy it before they ban it again.
Again, yes. R1P Buck gives us $5, says, I'm trying to get systemic liberal corruption trending on Twitter. Take it away, folks. By the way, CCP delenda est. Yes, thank you. Akasha Off the Nile gives us $2. MPP Randy Hillier said Bill 195 was passed. I think that's the bill that resulted in Belinda Karahalios getting the boot. Yeah, I mean, the Conservatives have a majority in government, so they're all just going to vote in line with the party. Richard Summers gives us $13.99. Human Rights Commission annual report is out. They are expanding. Of course they are. Everything's a human right now. They have new areas of jurisdiction. Pay equity, national housing strategy, and accessibility. Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, when everything's a human right, nothing is a human right. Observer Dude, £2. What are your thoughts on the rioting in Portland? I think Trump's got to crack down on it. I think he has to drop the hammer on what's going on down there. It's crazy. The city officials aren't doing anything. And so the feds, I have to move in. I'm not a fan of, the federal government strong arming any municipality, but boy, something has to be done. Betty Ann,
Sheila,
sorry, go ahead.
If I can weigh in there, I heard a fascinating interview from Ted Cruz, and he was talking about two prevalent trends right now in the U.S. One being that blue-collar workers in the Steel Belt, states, Pittsburgh, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, they are moving away from the Democratic Party. They're going Republican because they know they don't have any allies with the champagne socialists who are running the Democrats. But disturbingly, the other big trend is particularly female voters in the suburbs of America's big cities, including states like Texas, shifting to the Democrats because they don't like Donald Trump's mean-spirited tweets. What you're seeing in Portland, in the inner city, you mark my words, if there's a Democrat government in the United States, that's going to be moving to the suburbs. So I think all these, suburban voters that are upset with so-called nasty tweets, you want that on your doorstep? Because that's what's coming next, Sheila.
Yeah, I'm hopeful that voters from both parties see Donald Trump as the choice between anarchy and law and order, because that's really what it is about right now. I think the last election may have been more about the economy and, the insiders versus the outsiders. And this one, I think, is about law and order stability versus complete and total destruction of,
It really is.
I would suggest, the greatest nation that has ever existed on the face of the earth.
Yeah. Me too.
Betty Ann Green gives us $20, says, Sheila, I learned a year ago from police that scammers can make phone numbers look like they are from any city. Perhaps those calls came from elsewhere. That's also a good point. However, one of them did use their real name, and we were able to find them in Calgary. So
Genius.
Kane and yes, yeah, they used their real name and their phone number was on their LinkedIn. Kane, real clever. Kane Enmark gives us $2. China is not a race. When did Canada become a race? That's exactly it. China is a country, and it's a single party state, and the single party is the Communist Party of China, and it's oppressing the Chinese people first. We're advocates 100%. We're advocates for Chinese democracy, Chinese freedom. We are admirers of Chinese culture, and we want it preserved. We don't want it to be completely annihilated and absorbed by the Chinese state. And it's happening. It's happening there, and it's terrible to see, especially what's happening in Hong Kong.
Oh, yeah.
And that's it. I think we're all caught up.
Well, Sheila, I guess we're way over time. So without further ado, Sheila, thank you so much. Mr. Producer, thank you for all your technical genius. And a special thank you to the Super Chatters. Without you, we are nothing. We depend on your generosity, and you came through yet again today. So until tomorrow, I believe, or Friday.
Yeah.
I'm not sure when I'm seeing Sheila next, but I'll be in this chair. Have a great afternoon and stay safe.